What's up, everybody? Steven here with Neural DSP, and welcome back to another week of Q&A. My guest needs no introduction, really. Why don't you go ahead and welcome Ishahn to the live stream? How's it going, man?
It's very good, thank you.
Very good, very good. Oh, things are great. I can't complain. So you have a live stream show coming up on Sunday. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Of course, we're all musicians. We're struck by this COVID situation, and it's been rough times, I think, for the entire industry. And one of my good friends, and also my sound engineer locally here, he runs a business, which is, I'll make it short, but he runs a business, for rental and sound equipment and lights and everything for this whole area of Norway. So it's quite big, but of course Corona hits and suddenly all these employees, everything is out of business. Mm-hmm. And in Norway we're fortunate in the sense that we can get some, at least some companies like that can get some, financial support. But basically he said, okay, we have to do something else now. So he basically started a new company called Moonin Live for streaming services, but also we're with a kind of a paying system where everybody in the organization of making live shows, and sound engineers, lighting engineers, bands, techs, everything, everyone, managements, promoters, everyone gets kind of a cut, mm-hmm. Trying to stimulate. So we did. So we've been doing some live stuff. Lepros has been doing a lot of streams through the service. And we did a joint set, me and Lepers, a couple of months back. And basically now I prepared a rather special set where I'm basically playing my two latest releases. It's two EPs in their entirety. Mm-hmm. And they are kind of opposites. So this will basically be my most dynamic live show ever, because it goes from, one of the EPs is purely mellow, almost pop music, and to some of my harshest, most black metal oriented work for a long time is sung in Norwegian. So it's a challenging set. As I told you before we went on, I had a 7.5 hour rehearsal with my band today.
That's pretty intense.
But it's good fun. It's really good fun. And yeah, some of the reason we're talking is because both myself and my second guitarist is we're debuting the Quad Cortex for the show as well. So
yeah, that's gotta be like super exciting. So you just got it on Monday and just really got a hold of it yesterday. That's gotta be pretty with the show looming on Sunday. That's gotta be pretty nerve-wracking though too.
Both yes and no. I mean, it's I think yeah, I've followed the development and kind of watched the YouTube videos and read manuals and stuff, prior. So, and basically, as I think I told you, I've been following the development since even slightly before NAM last year.
Mm-hmm.
So very excited for the product, and it's really intuitive and easy
Mm-hmm.
to set up. And also, in general, I do my live patches and everything. It's not really complex. So I get some kind of core sounds for what I need and kind of build on that. So it's not super complex at this point.
That's good. That's good.
And it sounds great. It sounds really great.
Awesome. Yeah. So how did your relationship with Neural DSP start? I've had a couple of people asking on like the Facebook groups and stuff like that about like your favorite plugin or what you've had experience with thus far.
Well, I guess all of them. I've had the privilege of trying out all the neural stuff, and in my position, I've been privileged to, I would say, to try out mostly everything that is out there in terms of guitar plugins and all that. And we live in a very luxurious age. If you're a guitar player, you can get everything to sound pretty good. I would say plugins or modelers or what have you. So it's really, there's always criticism of that type of technology, but basically if you have a Kemper or a neural quad cortex or a helix or whatever, if you can't sound great on any of those for live show whatever, it may not be the unit. Yeah, that's so there are nuances, but basically what it comes down to is how immediate it is. And if it's very cumbersome, a lot of menus and everything, stuff that is hard to get around. So for me, it's very intuitive. It's just like I try it, and if I can get it to sound, the way I want it quickly, and just go, and that's where I think all the neural stuff, just the user interface, the graphics and everything, it's really easy to understand. It's not overly complex for someone like me who doesn't use a bunch of effects all the time. It's just cool to have like the bare bones, basics ready, and there are some amps that I found more, on point to what kind of sounds that I like. They're all really good, I think. But stuff like the Granifier, I think, was really easy to dial in, and the latest Soldano is like spot on, for what I need. But the Gojira one, Pliny, I think one of the main songs of the opening track of this Pharaohs EP that I'm playing on Sunday, that's basically just a mildly tweaked Pliny preset, so really intuitive and great stuff. And when I saw the quad cortex, that you could eventually, I understand you will get these plugins to work within that too. I mean, it's the future, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on a certain aspect of just the intuitiveness and being able to dial in stuff quickly, because I don't particularly like sitting down and tweaking knobs for extended periods of time. Like my ears can't handle that much anymore. Like I have like some tinnitus in my right ear, and so like I try to be able to dial in tones as quickly as I can, and not only just for just the comfort of it, but like the enjoyment of it. It's like I just want to get in and just play guitar. Like that's the ultimate goal of it, is just to play guitar, not to tone hunt as it were. So I think you're spot on saying that it's just very quick, very easy to dial in a tone that just sounds fantastic.
Absolutely. And for most of us, I think things have changed, by insane amounts since I started out. Of course, that's a little while back now, but just to illustrate, I mean, I'm still on Cubase as my main DAW, but basically the first time I got to work with Cubase. I think it wasn't even called Cubase, but that was what was before Cubase was still the same company, and that was back in 1991. So it was, I think it was an Atari S1000 machine, and these days, I mean, you had to go if you wanted to get a good sound. You needed to have a great amp, expensive stuff, and you needed to go to a huge studio and preferably something with, all the analog stuff. I mean,
Right.
And to now just have all this, basically you could have that on your laptop.
Right.
It's but then again, it's you still need to have the right taste.
Yes.
It doesn't do it for you.
No, that's very true. That's very, very true. I mean, like, would you consider yourself like a gearhead, or do you like expensive gear, that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
unfortunately, it's like I'm like everybody else. I mean, you get something really nice, and and before you get it, especially before, I mean, it's like, oh, if I just had this piece of equipment, everything would be complete. I would need nothing else. And I've spent so many thousands of for that alone.
Oh yeah.
And I have so much stuff that I basically don't need. I'm running out of space, in the basement for some storage there for amplifiers and cabinets and all that. But and I keep on, adding stuff. Now it's been, some analog synthesizers again. The tactile experience, even though you have so much great things in the computer.
Yes.
But yeah, it's. But I've come to a point, I think, where I have no excuses. I've done some sound treatment. I'm running the what a sound ID. It's a previously SonarWorks, which was a great improvement. Just for and I probably most importantly, I got myself a custom built desk, with racks and like pull out 88 note keyboard and stuff like that. But it's I can't really say I need anything else. But then again, I had to have the quadcopter X. So it's
no, it's true. I'm curious what your experience has been with gear, with the tech. Like, I feel like there's sort of been a huge uptick in the quality of a lot of the gear that's been coming out in the last, say, 5-10 years now. And even now, like with, Neural DSP putting out these modelers that are just fantastic, between the plugins and the quad cortex, it's like, I think that we're almost in, the best of times right now when it comes to having availability of good tones and good gear.
Absolutely. And I mean, emulation has been kind of there for a while, but I think we've gotten to the point now where, there really is no difference. I have some nice stuff, some tube preamps and, like API stuff, and, that I've acquired over the years. But then eventually I also bought, the Slate VML mic, and with the emulations and, for all the intents and purposes, it gets you there.
Right.
And it's easy. And it's the only downside, I think, of having all these options available is basically to make the choices, to make commitments. So that's sometimes I will, record, amps or, vocals through, to run my 1176 and, with an API preamp and just, crunch it and record that just to commit, because, you keep the way we work now, we keep, pushing back, the commitment of settling for a tone. And, I have a tendency, of course, always to record DI tracks when I'm tracking. Also because I do all my own engineering. I basically record and produce all my records myself and have someone else mix them. but it's a great work method, because then I can be a guitar player when I record, and then I can be the engineer, after the fact. So I don't have to wear all the hats at the same time.
Yes.
But you can get in the loop of always being able to second guess, the tone, was that right? That you can always switch out. So it doesn't necessarily take any less time.
Right. No, that's a fair point, because that's the thing that I tend to run into quite often doing the work for Neural, because I do a lot of the demos, I do a lot of cover tones and stuff like that, and it's kind of rough being your own recording engineer, mix engineer, etc. Because you do tend to get distracted. Like, I have to make sure that I am disciplined in my approach, so that way I can just, all right, today is just drum MIDI and bass MIDI and then guitar tracks. That's it. That's all I'm going to pay attention to today. And then the following day, it's like, okay, export the tracks and start the mix on the drums and the bass and getting all that settled. By the time I start getting the guitars like mixed, the tones are there. Like, I tend not to really go back to them, because, as you said, like, that option paralysis tends to keep us from actually releasing anything at all, because you may be able to hear that like 2% difference, but nobody else will. That's what I find.
And there's also the element of catching what is spontaneous. But that's, then again, then you have the upside to that. If you're if you're not set to record for an album, when you're working on the demos, maybe just working out the song, and suddenly you play a solo or lead part that you catch something. There's a certain slide, there's a certain thing that you catch, but it's the wrong sound. But if you have a setup where you always record a DI, that's you can capture some really good stuff when you're not in that red recording button mode in your head.
Yeah. How long have you been recording for yourself, doing your own engineering and stuff?
I would say pretty much from the last Emperor album, I think, in 2001. But then, of course, it's always been kind of a hybrid. But ever since I started recording my own, my solo albums in 2005, I've been doing everything. Even the first two albums, for better or worse, I even mixed them myself. So, but that's it's just become my MO, really, and I love to sit there and tweak and fiddle. But to have it's sometimes good. I don't have room to really record drums
right
in my studio here, so we have a collaboration with a local studio with a big room, big desk, and so it's nice to do stuff like that once in a while. But for the most part, I just really enjoy working out of my own studio. And I, even when we were back in studios, in the early days, I would spend all the time I could there, over the engineer's shoulder, and trying to learn as much as I could.
So like the engineering and mixing is actually something that you were, genuinely passionate about, and not something that came about by necessity. Because I find that there's a lot of people who are being forced into these, multiple roles just by happenstance, just by circumstance. And go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was lucky like that, because obviously now, with the music industry being the way it is, no one really had budgets to go into big studios, especially for a young band. So the technology is there for you to do, exactly the job you need to do, but you have to be willing to put in the effort to get those skills, at least, and you can always get someone to, reamp and mix stuff in a professional studio. But a lot of the work, if you're not too lazy, you can get to amazing results. So that's become more the standard, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bedroom producer has a much, a lot more output.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of colleagues, my age, who never got into that part,
Mm-hmm.
and they're kind of a bit lost now in the new way of working. But for some coincidence, I think my mother bought me a 4-track recorder when I was 12, and I immediately started recording demos, and I had this old, the electric organ
Mm-hmm.
with like pre-programmed drums and like bass pedals stuff, and I would do like tracks with that and record guitars just to a Boss Metal Zone directly in, get my dad to sing on it, stuff like that. So yes, I think 11 or 12, like two years after I started playing guitar, I just started tracking my own demos.
That's cool. That's really cool. I see. I started because I had a band that I want, like, it was my band, and I wanted to record it. So I had just started off, like, I picked up some like YouTube tutorials, and I got like a cracked version of Cubase and Waves Mercury bundle or whatever, and
Mm.
and this was like probably 8 or 9 years ago, I think, and I had I didn't really get into it too much until I actually had a hand injury that kept me from playing guitar. Some tendonitis, couldn't hold onto a guitar neck. So like, I just kind of dived into the audio realm, and I found that I actually just fell in love with it. That was something that I really truly enjoyed, and kind of spoke to me. And then, because of the availability of everything nowadays, like, I just had access to so much information that I could just learn from home. I could mix everything on headphones. I had some, like, JBLs that I would mix on, but like, no, it's been very interesting couple of years watching just the advent of technology and just what it's allowed people to do just from the privacy of their own homes. Like I'm live streaming from my living room right now, which has been pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
it's it's crazy, and I mean, I've recently I've been running like a basic songwriting course,
Mm.
for younger kids locally, and because uh, all kids in that age, they have a school iPad,
Hmm.
and all iPads have GarageBand. So
Yes.
basically, we've used that as a platform to see, like, if you want to write songs, you have everything you need, within an iPad. And so, and of course, this technology, to me, this is still very modern. As you say, you started out with getting a Waves plugin bundle.
Hmm.
I mean, uh, yeah, I started out with a 4-track recorder, so that's that shows you my age, I guess. But no, but a funny story about that, of course, that I think was part of, really settling my interest for studio work, was basically when we recorded the first Emperor album.
Hmm.
And after the first day of recording, everybody wanted to go to the pub, but I was thrown out because I wasn't 18. I was only 17. So basically, I ended up spending all the evenings, with the engineer in the studio, while
Hmm.
the others were went to the pub, and I kind of in the end I kind of enjoyed that part better.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I would probably be in the same shoes as you. I enjoy this so much. So much more. Nice. The Oh man. Let's
I'll
see.
tell you something else on the other end of the scale. To say you're live streaming from your
Hmm.
bedroom.
Yes.
I mean, I recently had the opportunity to finally get around to finishing up my, I guess, my first role as producer. I've
Hmm.
I've been producing a solo album for Matify
Oh,
from Trivium.
awesome.
Yeah. So because I mean, me and him, we've been talking about that since 2010. I think he came to visit me,
Hmm.
but suddenly when Corona hit, we both had time on our hands,
Hmm.
but of course we couldn't, catch up. So we've been pitching material back and forth, but basically, uh, with technology now, I was using this VST Connect that is part of Cubase. And basically, we just arranged the time, and I tracked him on my computer here in Norway, and he had his headphones and mic in his kind of room in Orlando, Florida, and I tracked him real time. I tracked all the vocals for that album in real time, via this plugin. And I could see him, and I was running his monitor mix, from here.
Oh, that's really awesome. That's so cool. Oh, man. You said that's your first real producing gig?
Yeah, for someone else.
For someone else.
Well, yeah. Well, there's always the first two or three Lepers albums that me and Heidi, my wife, helped produce and record for them. but this was like the first, like, because that's family.
Yes.
So
of course.
So this is kind of was my first outside experience. That's going into it. That's like, yeah, you're producing this, like, from the first demos, picking, doing the whole thing. But This was a really good experience.
That's cool. So you did touch on your experience with COVID just a little bit. So like you released a couple of EPs, and so like you're still putting out material, especially during 2020. I saw a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of activity. Did you find that you had to really like pivot pretty hard when COVID hit, or was that something that you just took in stride and just adjusted to it?
No, it was fortunate that because both those EPs that I dropped in 2020, they were already finished before COVID hit. So that was the plan. So actually, that was kind of a bummer because conceptually, because I've been releasing a lot of albums, and I wanted to try something different, kind of be more specific. So I decided to do two very like opposite EPs, where the first one, Telemark, was everything that was close to home, close to heart. So it's in Norwegian. It's basically a very simple arrangement for everything. It's 2 guitars, bass, drums, and a horn section. And the second EP is everything I really don't know how to do. So it's like much more experimental, a lot of synthesizers, very poppy. So two opposites really. But the idea was to always extend this into, onto the stage. So basically, the plan was to release the first EP in spring, and then I were to kind of debut that black metal Telemark show at the Norwegian Inferno Festival, where basically I played a live set, built around the aesthetics of that. So only the hardest, most brutal, aggressive black metal side of things. But then I have more, other more experimental songs and albums. So with I was supposed to go in autumn and release the second EP, and then do a European tour, playing only those more experimental, proggy, sounds of my output. But yeah, that all went down the drain.
yeah.
But for better or worse, I had stuff that I could put out there, and I was very fortunate to be in a position where me and Matt could finally do that album together. Yeah, and I've been doing bits and pieces. I've been writing for my next full length, and yeah, so kept ourselves busy.
That's good. I mean, it's been interesting watching the musicians try and find their footing through this whole situation, because it is difficult. It's like without that staple of being able to go out and support the music that you're creating, you then have to pivot and get your music to people another way, which is, the internet, social media, content creation, that sort of thing. It's been interesting to see what bands have been able to pivot really well and which ones haven't, unfortunately. It kind of sucks, but it's true. You look at a band like Spirit Box, and Spirit Box has just been, dominating the social media. Like, they're all over my feed constantly. They've been putting out really, really great singles. They got their album coming out, and they've built a community around their brand that has just really supported them throughout this. Like even for me, throughout this whole ordeal, like Neural has been supporting me doing something that I love doing, which has been awesome. You know, it's talking about like music industry adjacent, you know, positions, I suppose.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different ways to approach the situation, as I said, and I think yeah, as again, as I was using lepers as an example because they've been doing a lot of live streams, and they've kind of embraced the format even to the point that they also did like almost like a Big Brother thing. They rented this beautiful studio called Ocean Sound,
Hmm.
and basically went live, you know, for 6 days, 24 hours a day, and
Damn.
it so and people could be part of, you know, creating a song and creating and recording the songs. The audience would set parameters, you know, like song key,
Hmm.
you know, subdivisions, tempos, stuff like that, and they work from that. And so they've really embraced it. But then again, as I said, they've really built an understanding, you know, for the format of live stream shows, and they've been playing like entire albums, you know, um, consecutively,
Hmm.
and yeah, just yeah. The weekend after I'm doing this, I'm playing on Sunday, but next weekend they will play two entire albums as well. You know, 2 days in a row, and I'll get to be on there as well because I sing on some of those albums. But yeah, they've really embraced it and made, you know, kind of yeah, made something new. People rely on and trust that format.
Hmm.
You know that they and so yeah, for me, I'm just one person, so it's I feel maybe I'm too old too, but I try to, you know, do my bit, and I think it's great. You know, I really like the concept as I explained to you, where everybody benefits.
Hmm.
You know, and it's kind of you know, helps out everybody in the business, because eventually when we get out the other end of this, you know, we still need venues, we still need, you know, crew people, you
Hmm.
know, we still need sound engineers, and yeah, so we'll all have to do our bit.
Absolutely. So you got the show coming up Sunday. You got your quad cortex. What is next? What's the next project on your plate? If you can talk about it, of course.
uh, I may be doing some more like arranging and production, um, as well, kind of extending on that. You know, I had a good experience. As you know, as I said, I like fiddling around in the studio, and if I can, you know, do that with some other people as well, you know, that's a plus. But basically, my next plan is to you know, spend all the time in between, you know, the few shows that are to do my next solo album. So I have some pretty hairy goals for that one. So it might take a while, but
Hmm.
I'm kind of good into the process. It's starting to form, and
Awesome.
yeah, in between there, I mean, basically everything from 2020, and now it seems every show for 2021 is being pushed into 22. So
Yes.
so there, I think hopefully we'll do something, you know, this autumn,
Hmm.
with both bands, I could say, and hopefully in 22, you know, there will be lots of playing and touring with both Emperor and my solo stuff. So trying to catch up with on that end. But then at that point, you know, it would be cool to have a new album ready, you know, to just so we just have to, I just guess, use that all this time to the
Hmm.
best possible. It's kind of a privilege too, you know, to it's been many years since I had, you know, this amount of time to just focus on writing, you know, because often it's, you know, a mind shift in between, you know, especially when I'm playing with with two different bands. it's a lot of shifting focus.
Right. Absolutely. I can definitely believe that. That's great. Let's go ahead and move to some user questions.
Absolutely.
So, Colton Chapman asks, "What is your workflow like?" As far and that's all I have on my sheet. But let's go ahead and dig into maybe your songwriting process first, and then maybe talk a little bit about engineering if you have any tidbits that you want to share about that.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned, I've been in Cubase since forever, and I have a template with like a basic setup where I have like TI tracks that are grouped with like amp sim tracks. Basic, MIDI drum setup, MIDI bass, things like that, and just some core keyboard sounds, for layers. But apart from that, I guess my my work MO is really starts much before I actually turn on any sequencer. So especially since I started working solo, I mean, since there's not that natural push-pull of ideas between members, you need some kind of not limitation, but like a framework.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I had this same black book with white, just blank pages in it. And since the first solo album, basically, I write up what kind of album I want to make beforehand, with like a lyrical and conceptual framework, what type of sounds I wanted to, so, and also some vague ideas of how I want it to sound in the end, so to give myself not limitations, but like a creative focus point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like all these vague ideas, but I think hopefully in the end, whether it doesn't have to be a conscious thing, but that the final result, melds together, so that the lyrical themes, the visual themes, the musical elements, how it sounds, that it all comes together as one piece of expression.
Right.
So that's the start of it. But, on the technical side, I have a very typical setup like that. I always DI'd stuff, as I said, to just get the basic thing. I rarely ever mix things along the way. I know that's we talked about this commitment thing, but also trying to make the songs as complete, without any production on them.
Mm-hmm.
My poor drummer. I mean, when I recorded my fourth solo album, I basically wrote the entire album with a piano sound, and I made him record all the drums for that album just with a click track and all the riffs played by piano. So, but when it kind of, both because I wanted all the songs to work as compositions, just by the notes themselves, but him having nothing to lean on, dynamically or like with power,
Mm-hmm.
he would lay down a drum track with all that energy. He had to put everything in there, and that was a good foundation to start building, guitars on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I change up that part all the time. But and I a good tip is, of course, to, if you have the opportunity, to always tab your guitar riffs while you're writing.
Yes. Yep.
It's really convenient when you're starting to, if you're doing like other MIDI orchestrations, and it's really good if you, like me, have a tendency to forget how you play the riffs. And also with me, having session musicians, I can always print out stems, tabs, and score for everyone in my band, and they will know exactly what to play.
Perfect. I definitely feel you on that forgetting riffs part, because I have to like record myself playing riffs constantly, because I'll come up with something that I like, and then I'll have to record myself, otherwise I will instantly forget it, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, just the voice memo on my phone. I was surprised, because I thought, okay, I've recorded some riffs, and some ideas along the way. But then I was kind of listening through, and it was amazing how many of the like main, uh, core riffs of some of my later releases actually just started as voice memos. Again, not when you're that zone, you're just playing, enjoying yourself, no pressure of coming up with anything, and you do something. And of course, from learning the hard way that those great ideas, you forget them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Giuseppe asks, what do you think about not setting limits to yourself when writing music for both your solo work, bands, or other artists, especially sound-wise? And I think you kind of brushed on this a little bit as far as keeping a consistent framework for yourself. But as far as maybe adding in some of the more progressive elements to your sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been getting this a lot, that people think it's, really bizarre, strange that, with my background, that I ended up doing, more progressive stuff or more experimental things. And, from my perspective, given that I was, this is not in a like a self or blowing my own trumpet kind of way, but just the mentality. I mean, when I started playing black metal, I went to grades. I started with rock music and heavy 80s heavy metal, and ended up playing extreme music. But at 16, I was already kind of in a musical scene where we kind of pushed the envelope of how extreme, how far can we go with this music. And when we couldn't get further, okay, let's add the fucking orchestra on top of this to make it even bigger and more epic. So and I got the privilege to be in that position at 16, and it was very sad given the opportunity to kind of stop that process, of and that's my driving force, still, just to put myself in situations. And that's, some of these conceptual things that, it's a big part of that I put myself in situations where I'm inspired, where I'm super excited about doing the work, and, always adding elements that, are new to me, and doing things in a different way. Because when it comes, sometimes people get the impression that I try to provoke or shock, or, by doing something that is, kind of left of center of what is expected. But it's always just for my own curiosity and keeping myself in that zone where I'm enjoying it. Because in the end, if I'm not excited about what I'm creating, or and playing, I can't really expect anyone to be excited about listening to it.
Yes.
If the artist you like is not passionate about what he creates, like, yeah, it's like going to a restaurant and an expensive restaurant, and the chef says, well, I don't like it, maybe you will. I didn't really make an effort. You
Right.
don't want to go to that restaurant.
Absolutely. Let's see. Andy Kim asks, would love if you could discuss your journey about finding your vocal styles, especially when you were just starting out. Did it come fairly naturally for the most part, or was there some challenges along the way? And if so, how did you solve or navigate around them?
Oh yeah, that's that's interesting, because I started out, the bands we had prior to Emperor were more death metal. So I started out like, really deep growling. And when we started Emperor, of course, the more high pitched screaming vocals were, basically only inspired by Battery, and to this day, I mean, as a black metal inspiration, for the vocals, Quarton from Battery has only been the only inspiration in that regard. And as with the death metal vocals, it was David Vincent, because both of them, what they have in common is that it's very pronounced. You can actually, it's good diction. You can hear
Yes.
what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And what I particularly found interesting with Battery and Quarton like that, because it, there's a lot of death metal vocals and screaming vocals, black metal style, that is just noise.
Yeah.
It's really extreme, and I'm sure it's really hard to do, but you don't really get that emotion across necessarily. Or at least it's a very one-dimensional aggression.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel what appealed to me in Quarton singing was that sometimes he would strain his voice so hard, that it would break back into his regular voice, and there's a fragile moment there,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a soreness and like a very melancholic, dimension to it, and I really, that is something that I've strived to do, to be very clear, but also to have that emotional range.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, on the aesthetic side. When it comes to on the technical side, I would suffer from chronic throat infections, in the
Mm.
early years, because really didn't have a good routine. And I remember my colleague Samuel from Emporor, he was always kind of annoyed that every time we hit the studio, my voice would have changed, because
Oh.
I really hadn't, found, that voice. But I found some techniques that were actually where I would, sing, part of some of my favorite Battery songs, and that would put me into that zone, like also physically,
Mm-hmm.
to get that. And that's, I think, how I found my, the pressure points of where I would, put the vocals. And also, it's a matter of course, compressing, your throat the right amount, and you don't. A lot of people overdo it, and they can do two
Right.
screams and they're done.
Right.
But you have to be able to hold back if you're going to last for 1.5 hours.
Absolutely. It's more about control than it is power. That
Yeah,
in
and
my experience.
yeah, and also, I mean, a lot of people wonder where the sound is coming from. This it's hard to find. So, and the best way I've had to explain this, when it's the same place when you clear your throat.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And basically, and then you start, and if you do like, or imagine like a falsetto thing, where through your nose at the
Mm-hmm.
same time.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to explain this to people in the past. It's hard, but that is a good starting point. If you start with, for your friend there, if he wants to start, you know, finding this, being aware of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the best advice I can get without starting to scream here.
Yeah.
And I think we shouldn't do that.
No, no, no. We'll leave that for another live stream.
I think so.
Let's see. Rishab asks, every musician at some point goes through a phase of slumber and crippling self-doubt, and that is the time when one feels totally uninspired. Does it ever happen to you, and how do you tackle or overcome this?
It happens to me, mm, like every week, I think. And no, but it's true. And I think every new album I start, it, even now, I've been releasing consecutively, another full-length album every second year since I was 16, and I'm turning 46 this year. So and still every album I feel like a total imposter, and I feel I have to start over. And I've been talking to my friends like Devin Townsend and
Mm-hmm.
some of these people who in my mind are on top of their game.
Yeah.
Like a guy like Devin Townsend, there's, to me it seems like there's nothing he couldn't do.
Yes.
If if he imagines this, he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to him, he said like he had the exact same feelings of failure, and when will I get caught red-handed, for all my faults, and all the stuff I can't do. And so I think it's just universal,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's easier for younger musicians to be cocky and like if they found something, did something cool, but over time, the more it's like with any profession or any competence, the more you know, the more you are aware of all the stuff you don't know, and you raise the bar continuously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is a good thing. If again, like I said, putting myself in situations where I there's always that danger of doing something that you haven't done before, keeps you on edge. But that's kind of part of the excitement. That's why we're
Right.
doing this in the first place. And if you're doing that, creating art or music, with a mindset of, yeah, I'll just do whatever I did last time,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you'll end up doing anything particularly good.
Right.
So it's the old boring saying of stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no comfort in that. If you're serious about doing music for the rest of your life, you'll have to live with that feeling the rest
Yep.
of your life. You don't get to a point where you feel you finished, or at that point you should, at least if I reach that point, which I will.
Oops. Call's breaking up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the last part of your sentence there? The call broke up just a little bit.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, no, that as I said, if you want to do this, music for the rest of your life, you just have to accept that feeling will be with you for the rest of your life.
No, honestly, that from my limited experience, talking to musicians and talking to some of like my own personal heroes, like that is, as you said, it's a universal feeling, that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, like it's almost there to help guide you. Because if you're just doing something and not even second guessing yourself, there's possibility that you may have overlooked something. You're going to put something out that's bad. The fact that you're self-doubt, like the fact that you're doubting yourself, means that you have good taste and you're trying to make sure that your taste is coming through in your music. So it's not a bad thing as long as you don't keep it from stopping, as long as you keep it from as long as you execute. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
But I think that it's universal also, and it has always been. I think I may be misquoted, but I believe it was Socrates who said that really smart and talented people, they will learn from everything around them and other people, and ordinary people will learn from their mistakes, and stupid people, they already have all the answers.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's we've all met those techie guys and the musicians who seem to have an opinion about everything being worse, and apparently have skills that surpass everyone else's. They already know all the tricks and what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's we all know how that sounds.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. Next question. Paul Vario asks, have you ever considered taking a break from such adventurous and complex arrangements? Maybe a collection of stripped down solo material highlighting acoustic guitar or piano and voice. Thank you for the years of music and inspiration.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you. No, I mean, honestly, I think that is also just part of my nature. I think every album that I made in the last 15 years, I've been thinking, okay, I'm going to go all minimalist on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I failed miserably. Because it's by the time I finished with the guitars and the bass and the bass vocals, there will be ideas popping up in my head with other sounds,
mm-hmm.
and harmonies and all that, and I end up doing that. But I the closest I would get to that acoustic guitar and piano, I mean, I think this latest EP, Pharaohs,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, bordering on that in some parts, which is very, very mellow and quiet. And to some extent, I would say that the first of the two EPs, Telemark, is also very minimalist, because I restricted myself to like a typical band setup: two guitars, bass, and vocals, and a brass section, but for good measure. But beyond that, it's not any bells and whistles. There's not a lot of keyboard layers or anything like that. It's just like very bare bones, like that. So I guess even how different they are, the two EPs in themselves are kind of more restricted, and it's not really. I think people have sometimes think my arrangements are more complex than they really are. So I don't really deal with a lot of odd measures or really complex stuff. It's kind of I feel and especially in later years I've been with song structures that are very typical pop rock formula songs.
Sure. Kind of losing you again.
Yeah, we froze up a little bit again.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. They're back.
Are we back? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool. Roberto Genchi asks, what are some good recommendations of bands you like lately? And that I would add, bands that you maybe think also are not maybe getting the attention that they deserve as well.
Good one. This is where I feel a little bit at loss, because I have a tendency to listen to a lot of music that is not necessarily band or rock oriented, just because that's so I tend to listen to a lot of non-band music. But what can I say? I have some for instrumental rock music. There's a trio called Astrosaur. Astrosaur. And it's an amazing band. I mean, if you haven't seen their cover of Radiohead's Pyramid Song, go check it out immediately. So Astrosaur, Pyramid Song, and they have some other of their own original tracks. They're amazing, instrumental trio. So that's a good choice. And when it comes to other bands, I mean. But that is of course obvious for all your fans, like the new Gojira stuff that they released. There's a great band. That's one of those bands that they don't sound like anything else. They've always just been Gojira. There's just like this authenticity and kind of so trustworthy.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's definitely a handful of bands like that for me where you know their sound just by a couple of measures, like Gojira, Opeth, Meshuggah, like just they have their sound and it's theirs. It's very much theirs.
And even Opeth, who kind of changed their sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
But still also with all the authority in the world.
Absolutely.
Love that band.
Agreed.
Great guys.
There, I think it was Blackwater Park was one of the first like metal albums that I really listened to. It was Ghost Reveries too. Like Ghost Reveries was definitely one of like the first like introductions to metal that I had. It was a beautiful.
It was Ghost Reveries who made me look up Fascination Street for mixing my third solo album.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Because Michael did guest vocals for my second album, so he already recorded some stuff there with Jens at Fascination, and we have a long time relationship too.
Awesome.
As a fan also to Opeth and Yeah. My first encounter with them was the first rehearsal tape. And a fun fact on that note, I believe, because in those days there were a lot of tape trading.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe it was either the second guitarist in Emperor, Samos, or Faust, the drummer, who sent like a mixtape to the owner, the originator of Candlelight Records, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm still at, but at the last part was a snippet of Opeth's rehearsal tape,
Mm.
and that was what got them signed to Candlelight in the first place for the first three albums.
Oh wow. That's
Fun
really
story.
cool. That's a cool story. I like that. That's cool. Let's see. Aaron Tuck is asking. I noticed you unboxed your QC today. I'm interested to hear how you're going to incorporate it into your rig, and if you might be sharing some presets.
Um, for sure, I am. I'd be happy to share presets. I registered on the cloud thing there, but I haven't. Is that I yeah posted it. I literally opened it, yesterday evening.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, we talked about this, in the start, that modelers and
Sorry, guys. Call's breaking up just a
you
little
know
bit.
we've froze up it. Yeah.
There you go.
No, and so there's also a lot of functionality. I love the fact that it also doubles up as a sound card.
Hmm.
When I'm traveling, to be able to not have to connect a lot of stuff to my laptop to start recording, or even just rehearsing stuff, that you could plug in a mic and have like an in-air setup with your laptop if you're rehearsing to tracks or whatever. I've been doing that a lot lately.
Hmm.
Just when I've been traveling, been all these places that need to rehearse. So that point alone, of course, the capture features. That's it doesn't make all my amps redundant.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love the fact that you can capture pedals. I have a big drawer of pedals that I use far too little.
Hmm.
But basically, yeah, it will be part of my library. Just the size alone,
Yes.
compared to the other modelers that I've been using, is such a big point for me, because with in-air rigs and all that, there's a lot of equipment, especially I do a lot of fly-ins,
Hmm.
and it is me and Ihsahn, my other guitarist, we were talking about this, that say we for some reason should have trouble with one of our rigs, because we're both now on the Cortex, and basically we could both have like a setup on each of our Cortex where we could all plug in. So
Hmm.
even if there was some kind of luggage mistake or whatever, when you could still plug into one unit, like bass, two guitars,
Yeah.
and still
Yeah.
be able to. So that alone, uh, uh, and in more practical terms, I will probably just go direct, always. Apart from my last European tour, I had a modeler with me, but then on smaller clubs, I always find it good to have some kind of amp going on stage as well, because on festival stages or whatever, there's really no sound coming from the back line.
Hmm.
But when you get to some of the smaller clubs in Germany or something like that, you there's something a bit off with just cymbals and
Right.
acoustic drums, and everything else is PA. It just doesn't add up.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we'll probably. But then again, there's connectivity for that. That you could run without cab simulation to just whatever backline is there.
Yeah.
If you have like an FX return or something,
Yep.
then just run it to use it as a power amp. So it really has all the functionality that and plus everything else, and it's easy to set up. I love the scenes,
Hmm.
in regard to spillover, and those So I already, that's the way I'll be using it with scenes.
Perfect.
That's great. So
beautiful.
I think, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much sums it up. I like that. I think that's a great note to start wrapping things up on. Usually the way I like to kind of stop or end the episodes is that if you could give advice to the people in the audience, those who want to do things that are similar to what you're doing, what advice would you have those that are up and coming or want to try and build a musical career in today's environment?
Well, given my age and my my background, I've been asked this. People would come to me to ask advice. What is the right thing to do, and if it's something that I've never known, is what was the right thing to do. So honestly, because I mean, the reason I have a career is that I never tried to do anything the right way. You don't, if we didn't for a second think that we would have a music career playing black metal in 1991. That was purely for artistic motivations. We had absolutely no. I would argue, even when we recorded the second Emperor album, there was like none of us had any idea that we would make a. Oh, I think we froze up again.
Just a little bit. That's all right.
We're back, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, but I think the reason I have a career today is as a consequence of not trying to fit in with something that was already existed.
Mm-hmm.
And as a consequence, there were people kind of catching on to it. And especially if you want to do something within the realm of underground music, which is basically, it's like metal or extreme metal or even progressive music, authenticity is key, whether your audience is aware of that or not. I think it's something subconsciously built into us. If you watch a show or listen to music, it can be perfectly performed, but if it's not authentic from those expressing it, at some level it will get noticed. And if you start cutting corners, like, okay, maybe if we put a more catchy chorus in this section, we may get radio time, then you might as well go all the way, and do stuff for radio. But I think the best advice I can get, and I know it's very boring, that you do things, absolutely the way that you want, to the best of your ability, and keep yourself excited doing it. And by some odd chance you may get, an opportunity to take it further. Someone else, maybe you get so good at it that someone else will enjoy it too. But and I tell this to some of my guitar students as well, even if you don't succeed in having a career or having records out or something like that, if you're always genuinely going into playing the music that you love, no one can ever take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start with that, because it's to have a career in music like that. Of course, there's a lot of smart things you can do, but if you watch all the The Voice or American Idol, all these things, even if they get all that kind of attention, very, very few of them actually have careers. It's usually stuff that happens over time,
mm-hmm.
that is consistent. People don't even have time to develop, like a relationship to artists. My kids, they listen to music all the time, but there are very few artists they have a relationship to. They're just songs in a random playlist of everything else. Yeah, I don't know if that is, I think it's true advice, but it's probably not what you want to hear.
No. That was perfect. Honestly, I think that you really succinctly summed that up, where there's what would be considered the right way to do things, but you have to be true to what you want to do. as you said, it's like you wanted to do what you wanted to do, and you ended up with a career out of it anyway, and it wasn't maybe the initial primary goal. The primary goal was just to make the art, not the
Yeah.
career. So,
And we were so young we didn't have a plan B.
yeah.
That's actually the first rule.
Yeah.
Never have a plan B, because the plan B is always easier.
That's facts. Yeah.
And the fear of honest work is what keeps us going.
No, very good advice. Honestly, the authenticity that you create your art with is what will attract people who are like you to what you're doing, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also it's if you start cutting corners, and also the thing, if you can imagine playing my style of music in 1991.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe you can't even imagine, the kind of shit, and just playing this, screaming harsh vocals. If we were to and I think that is a lucky thing that none of us cared at all what other people thought. Again, we're just doing this for ourselves because we like, the kind of, feedback to our music, how garbage, noisy, absolutely worthless it was. That's why also I'm not immune, but I think I have a very healthy relationship to reviews or that.
Sorry,
the music won't be any better.
Right.
No, a healthy relationship to feedback and reviews and everything,
yeah.
because it's all very hollow, and it's one person's opinion, and your music doesn't. If you're happy with what you put out, if you did your best and to the best of your ability, that doesn't change whether people like it or not.
Agreed.
So I think that is also a very important point to not let others tell you where to go with your music. Absolutely take good advice from people you trust and people with competence who can put you in a better direction. That's always an option, but again, an old philosophical saying, I can't remember right now who said it, but it's like, if you expect all your applause from the outside, you put your happiness in someone else's power. And there's a lot of truth to that, especially when it comes to creativity and music. And yeah, so I know it's not a lot of money making music advice, but
right,
that's it is from my experience.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
That's all right. So that was a great answer. Where can people get tickets for the live show coming up on Sunday, and where can they find your music and socials and all that kind of stuff?
Okay. The show on Sunday you will find if you go to moonin.live.
It's also in the description down below too.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yes.
No, it's my music is everywhere, I guess. Usual suspects, with Spotify, Apple Music, and there's always, vinyl and stuff available for those who enjoy that.
Cool.
Socials are, Ishahn official.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. So thank you all for hanging out in the chat. Thank you, Ishahn, for just a lovely conversation. This was really cool. And I'm looking forward to the show on Sunday, man. This is going to be great.
I look forward to it. And thank you so much for having me on. It's really good. I always love an opportunity to talk about gear and techie stuff. Apart from, most of my interviews are like much more, regular. So I always like the more nerdy conversations.
Oh, I can get pretty nerdy in myself. So
that's mine. I forgot to ask you all the all the stuff, but the features and stuff. But we can do that later.
Yeah. You know where to find me. I'm all...
Yeah, I have your email now, so I'll be bugging both you and Max for feature requests and stuff.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, you just let me know. So
Thanks,
awesome.
man.
So thank you all for everything. This has been great, and we'll see you on that
Thank you.
next one.
Yeah. See you guys. Thanks.